When Margaret turned 68, she found herself standing in the middle of her living room, surrounded by unopened boxes, piles of papers, and shelves full of things she no longer remembered keeping. The silence in her home wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy. The kind of silence that comes not from rest, but from weight. A weight she couldn't explain. It wasn't just the clutter. It was something deeper. She looked around and whispered to herself, "How did it all become so overwhelming?" She didn't want to downsize. She didn't want to throw everything away. And she certainly didn't want to feel like a guest in her own house. But she also didn't know where to begin. Then, slowly, week by week, something shifted. Not all at once, not dramatically, but gently, Margaret began making space in her home and in her heart by following a series of simple weekly habits inspired by Japanese wisdom. She didn't move to a new house. She didn't hire a professional organizer, and she didn't become a minimalist. She just started small, with quiet rituals that felt more like self-care than chores. And 2 months later, her house felt different, lighter, warmer, more alive. In today's video, I'll share these exact practices with you, not as a checklist, but as a way of reconnecting with your home, your energy, and your peace of mind. If you've ever looked around and felt like your home no longer reflects who you are, this may be exactly the beginning you've been waiting for. Let's begin. Habit 1. The doorway that changes everything. Most people walk through their front door without a second thought. But what if I told you that the energy of your entire home begins right there, at the threshold? In Japanese tradition, the entrance to the home is sacred. It is not just a physical doorway. It is a space of transition, a line between the outside world and your personal sanctuary. And for Margaret, this is exactly where her transformation began. Every Sunday morning, she would step outside with a small broom, a bucket of warm water, and a little coarse salt. She swept the porch gently. She cleaned the doormat. She wiped down the door, slowly and with intention. And as she did, she imagined letting go of all the noise, tension, and exhaustion from the week before. This was not just cleaning. It was a quiet declaration. This space matters. I matter. She added a small potted plant beside the door. Some weeks, a little wind chime. Other times, just a clean open space. What mattered most wasn't how it looked. It was how it felt. And what she noticed, almost immediately, was this. The house began to feel like it could breathe again, and so did she. So here is the gentle question for you. When was the last time you looked at your front door? Not as a place you pass through, but as a place to begin again. Because sometimes, peace doesn't come from changing your whole life. It comes from opening the door and letting something new in. Habit 2. Let the house breathe before you do. There is something powerful about fresh air. It clears the mind, softens the mood, and somehow reminds us that we are alive. And yet, many of us go days, even weeks, without truly opening our homes to it. In Japan, this is never overlooked. There is a quiet, beautiful practice of airing the home once a week, not just cracking a window, but really opening the space, windows, doors, cabinets, letting every room exhale. Margaret began doing this every Monday morning. She would walk through the house slowly, unlocking windows, pulling open curtains, and even opening the closet doors. She let the morning light pour in. She turned on soft music. She moved slowly, deliberately. She was not trying to clean. She was trying to release. And what happened was subtle but unmistakable. The air moved. The energy shifted. Her home felt less stuck. And inside, something softened too. This practice has a deeper meaning. It is about allowing the old to leave. Stale energy, tired thoughts, heaviness we did not even realize we were carrying. It invites something new to enter. not just into the room, but into us. So here is your invitation. Once a week, open everything. Let the house breathe. And while you do, take a few minutes to breathe with it. Not because you have to, but because you deserve to feel the light again. Habit 3. The drawer that rewrote her story. At first, Margaret thought she needed to fix her whole house. Every room felt like too much. Too many things. Too many memories. Too many decisions. But then, she heard something that shifted her thinking completely. You do not need to change everything. You just need to begin with one corner. That week, she chose the drawer beside her bed. It was filled with pens that no longer worked, half-used notebooks, receipts, and loose buttons she had not seen in years. She emptied it, wiped it clean, and only returned the items that felt useful or meaningful. It took less than 20 minutes. But what surprised her most was not how tidy it looked afterward. It was how different she felt. In Japanese homes, this is a well-known practice, choosing one small space each week to reorganize. Not to control the home, but to reconnect with it. And that quiet gesture, just one corner at a time, can become a kind of emotional reset. The drawer led to a bathroom shelf, then a kitchen cabinet, then a corner of the garage. Week by week, her home began to reflect more of who she was now, and less of who she had been holding on to. So if you feel overwhelmed by clutter or frozen by the size of the task, remember this: you do not need to do it all. You just need to do one. Choose a drawer, a shelf, a surface, and give it your full presence, even if just for 10 minutes. Because sometimes the smallest corner holds the key to the biggest shift. Habit 4. When fresh fabric touches the heart. Margaret did not think much about the towels or pillowcases in her home. They were there, they worked, they were fine. But one Friday morning, something shifted. She noticed her kitchen towel, damp, stained, and a little sour. She paused. The towel felt tired, and oddly, so did she. That was the beginning of a new habit. In Japanese homes, fabric is treated with care. It is not just about hygiene. Fabrics are seen as the skin of the house. They touch our faces, hands, and bodies every day. Over time, they quietly hold the energy of our emotions, routines, and even our fatigue. Margaret decided to begin changing her home's fabrics once a week. On Fridays, she gathered her pillowcases, dish towels, bath towels, and small rugs. She washed them with warm water and gentle soap. When the sun was shining, she dried them outside, letting the fresh air and sunlight do their work. It became a small ritual, folding the towels, smoothing the sheets, placing everything back with care. The result? The house felt different, not just cleaner, but more alive. Her sleep felt deeper, her mornings calmer. Changing fabrics became a gesture of kindness, not for guests, not for show, but for herself. If you try just one thing this week, let it be this. Choose the fabrics you use most. Wash them slowly. Let them dry fully, and when you place them back, do it with intention. You might find that softness returns, not just in your linens, but in your life. Habit 5. Letting go with gratitude. Margaret had a cabinet full of mugs, some chipped, some faded, most untouched for years. Yet every morning, she reached for the same one or two. The rest sat quietly, taking up space, not just in her kitchen, but in her heart. One quiet afternoon, she decided to begin a new habit. It was not about throwing things away. It was about letting go, with intention and with thanks. In Japanese homes, people often practice a weekly habit of gently evaluating what still serves them. Not everything needs to stay. Not everything needs to be used, but everything deserves a moment of Do I use this? Does this support who I am today? Am I keeping it out of guilt or love? That day, she thanked the extra mugs, not out loud, but in her heart. She remembered the moments tied to each one. Then she placed them in a box for donation, not as trash, but as gifts moving on. The next week, it was old clothes. Then plastic containers with missing lids, books she no longer planned to read. Step by step, corner by corner, she made space. The process was slow, thoughtful, and surprisingly emotional. Each goodbye made room for clarity. Each item released became a quiet breath of relief. Margaret's house began to feel lighter, not empty, not sparse, just more in tune with her present life. You can try this too. Pick one small category. It could be scarves, mugs, shoes, or even pens. Take a moment with each item. Hold it. Ask if it belongs in your life now. If it does not, let it go, gently. Because letting go is not about loss. It is about trust. Trust that who you are today is enough. And that space, physical and emotional, is a gift. The more you release, the more you return to yourself. Habit 6. Where no one looks, peace begins. It started with a tiny moment. Margaret dropped her reading glasses behind the nightstand. When she bent down to retrieve them, she saw it. The dust, the crumbs, the forgotten tissue, the quiet evidence of all the days she had passed by without noticing. It made her pause. The top of the cabinet, the filter behind the refrigerator, the switch plates in the hallway, the tracks of the windows. These were not dirty in the obvious way. They were simply ignored. And yet, each one whispered something. Not loudly, not angrily, but enough to say, I am still here. In Japanese homes, there is a belief that energy hides in the details. What is not seen still affects how we feel. And when the invisible parts of the home are left uncared for, a kind of stagnation settles in, not just physically, but emotionally. Margaret began to understand that it was not enough for her home to look clean. It needed to feel clean. It needed attention in places no one else might ever see. So, she began a quiet ritual. Every week, she chose one small, invisible area to care for. One week, it was the inside of the washing machine door. The next, the vent in the bathroom ceiling. Another time, the baseboards beneath the guest bed. It did not take hours, sometimes just 10 minutes. A cloth, warm water, a little care. But the effect was far greater than the effort. She found that these acts of attention became almost meditative. It was not about scrubbing. It was about seeing, being present, tending to what she had forgotten. And something curious happened. As she started caring for the parts of her home no one else noticed, she found herself caring more gently for the parts of herself she had ignored too. The tired thoughts, the old regrets, the quiet sadness that lingered in the background of her day. Cleaning behind the toilet became more than maintenance. It became a reminder, even what is unseen deserves love. There is something deeply human about this practice. So much of life teaches us to focus on what is visible, the presentable, the impressive. But peace, real peace, often begins in the places that are not on display. So here is your gentle invitation. This week, look around. Not for what others will notice, but for what you have not. Find the places that have gone untouched for too long. The top of a picture frame, the inside edge of the oven door, the back of the closet floor. Choose one, just one. Clean it slowly. Breathe as you do. Pay attention not just to the task, but to how it makes you feel. Because when we take care of what is hidden, we create harmony that lasts. The quiet corners, the dusty ledges, the little things, they all matter. And so do you. Habit 7. The scent of stillness. It was Sunday afternoon, and the house was quiet. Margaret had finished her light cleaning, folded the laundry, and opened the windows to let in the last breath of weekend sunlight. But something still felt incomplete. The rooms looked tidy, but not quite alive. That is when she reached into a small drawer and took out a stick of lavender incense. She lit it. The smoke rose in a slow spiral, barely moving at first. The scent began to drift gently into the room, soft, floral, comforting. And something in her body let go. Her shoulders dropped. Her breath deepened. She sat down in silence and let the scent move around her, like a soft hand resting on her chest. In Japanese tradition, scent is not just about making a room smell good. It is about resetting the energy of a space. Just like stale air or cluttered corners, the atmosphere of a home can become heavy with emotion, fatigue, or tension. Lighting incense or using natural aromas is a way of clearing that weight, a kind of spiritual exhale. Margaret did not grow up with incense. It felt unfamiliar at first, but the more she used it, the more it became a signal to her body and mind that something was shifting, that she was entering a new moment in the week, that her house and her heart were being made new. She experimented with different scents: lavender for peace, sandalwood for grounding. Citrus peels simmered on the stove for energy. Some days, she used a diffuser with a few drops of rosemary oil. Other days, she simply gathered a few fresh herbs from the garden and placed them in a jar of warm water near the window. It was never about the product. It was always about the intention. She would walk slowly through each room, letting the scent move with her. She opened closet doors, paused by the entryway, stood by the dining table. As the aroma filled the air, so did a sense of calm, a sense of being held. This simple practice became a moment of ritual, a time each week to stop doing and start being, to allow herself to just exist in her space, not as the one who cleaned it, managed it, organized it, but as the one who was nurtured by it. She found that her mind began to associate these scents with stillness, with coming home, with peace. The power of this habit is not in its complexity, it is in its presence. You do not need incense or expensive oils. You only need something natural, intentional, and soothing, and the willingness to pause and breathe it in. So here is your gentle invitation. Once a week, after cleaning or airing out your home, light something fragrant and natural. It could be incense. It could be a simmering pot of cinnamon and cloves. It could be a sprig of lavender tucked near your bed. Move through your home slowly. Let the scent follow you. Let it settle. And while you do, say to yourself, softly, without hurry, "This is my space. This is my time. I am safe here." Because scent has memory. And when you create this moment each week, your home will remember. Your body will remember. And peace will find you a little more easily, again and again. Margaret did not change everything overnight. She did not empty her house, buy new furniture, or chase perfection. She simply began to care for the little things. One habit a week, one small gesture at a time, and slowly, her house began to feel different. Not just cleaner, but lighter, softer, more alive. But more than that, she felt different. She walked more slowly through her rooms. She smiled more when folding the towels. She began to speak to herself more kindly. Her home became her partner in healing, not a burden, not a reminder of what was lost, but a quiet, living reflection of peace. That is what I hope for you too. Because your home is not just the place where you sleep, cook, and store your belongings. It is the space that holds your energy. It is where your memories live, where your breath slows down, where you meet yourself again and again. You do not need a big transformation. You just need small, loving habits done with intention. So if any part of today's video spoke to your heart, I would love to know, what habit will you begin with? What corner of your home is calling for attention? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. I read every one, and if you want more gentle, practical wisdom like this, designed especially for women like you, who are building peace one day at a time, please consider subscribing. This space we are creating together is not just about homes. It is about life, aging with grace, living with clarity, and coming home, not just to a house, but to yourself. Thank you for being here. I am so glad you are.